Few moments scream your marriage is doomed, louder than spotting your husband barreling into a maternity ward clutching flowers while you're busy convincing a nurse that your mother's stubbed toe isn't actually gangrene. That's how my Tuesday morning started, in the fluorescent purgatory of Auburn Medical Center, where the smell of antiseptic clings to your nostrils like an overzealous relative at a family reunion. Vanessa, my mother, was standing on one foot, gesturing wildly at a nurse while insisting, "I told you, this toe looks infected. Do you see the green? Do you?" Not that it matters, but I pinched the bridge of my nose. 1. Breathe. 2. Notice what really matters. And there he was. Daniel. My husband of 15 years. Only he wasn't just holding flowers. No, he was clutching a teddy bear wearing a Daddy's Little Princess t-shirt, subtle as a fire alarm at a silent library. I froze mid-step. The receptionist chirped, "Baby born this morning," as if that line alone could normalize what I was seeing. My stomach nodded. My brain went into librarian mode. Catalog, classify, analyze. This wasn't a hallucination. I had visual proof. I discreetly snapped a photo. Not for social media, not for gossip. For evidence. For clarity. Because one look at that bear told me there was a story Daniel wasn't telling, a parallel chapter of our life I hadn't been invited to read. I exhaled slowly, pulling my mother gently away. Public meltdown? Not today. Today, I start collecting the pieces. And I intend to put them all in alphabetical order. I'm Sophia Robinson, 38, mild-mannered librarian at Auburn Public Library, and apparently, at this very moment, a woman whose life is unraveling faster than the spine on a forgotten hardcover. I live in Auburn, where everyone knows your business before you've even finished thinking it, and yes, the rumor mill would be working overtime tonight. I could confront him right there, in the fluorescent hell of the maternity ward. Let my voice crack, my hands tremble, and scream at the universe about his betrayal. I could slink away, vanish into the parking lot, crawl into the safety of our home, and cry until the world made sense again. Or I could do what any self-respecting, underestimated librarian would do. Gather evidence. Formulate a plan. Execute it with the precision of alphabetically shelving the entire fiction section. For research purposes only, of course, I briefly considered Googling ways to poison a cheating spouse. My mother would have laughed so hard she'd have toppled over again. But no. Focus. Methodical. Strategic. The house is quiet for now. My mother reluctantly trailing behind me, muttering about her own dramatic demise should my future collapse require a stage. I pull out my phone and make a mental list. Receipts, credit card statements, travel logs, photos, text messages. If Daniel has a parallel life, I intend to document it fully, like a librarian cataloging a hidden archive no one knew existed. I take a deep breath. Everyone may eventually know everything or nothing at all. But I'll decide the timing, the framing, the narrative. That's the difference between a breakdown and a blueprint. The first step is clear. Evidence over emotion. Truth over theatrics. And somehow, even in this chaos, I feel the faint stirrings of agency. In Auburn, people think librarians are just quiet book pushers, quietly stamping and shelving, living in the world of dust and whisper. They don't know we're information specialists, trained to see patterns, cross-reference details, and turn suspicion into irrefutable proof. Today, that skill set would be my lifeline. Hudson Paper Supply smelled faintly of copier toner and old coffee, comforting in its mundanity. I smiled at Alex, Daniel's assistant, who looked more curious than suspicious when I walked in clutching a small box of cookies. "For research purposes only," I murmured, and he laughed. One more ally wouldn't hurt. Calendars. Expense reports. Trip logs. Addresses. Slowly, piece by piece, the picture took shape. Buffalo trips listed on Daniel's expense reports had no clients, no meetings. The hotel receipts didn't match any work events. My suspicion was turning into documentation, and my pulse steadied. Evidence, tangible and neat, was growing in my hands. Alex leaned over, eyes shifting toward the corner of the office where the filing cabinet loomed like a silent witness. "You're really doing this," he said. I just nodded. Except there was no Buffalo client. None. Just a fabricated life, quietly growing alongside mine, like ivy creeping along a wall you thought solid. And now, thanks to my librarian skills and Alex's cooperation, I had the beginning of a map. Back at home, the quiet hum of the Robinson residence felt almost conspiratorial, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. I steel myself before stepping into the home office, Daniel's private domain. The credit card statements were illuminating. Monthly charges at Little Sprouts Boutique, Mommy and Me classes, and hospital visits in Buffalo. Charges I'd never authorized, never seen, never imagined. I moved methodically, cataloging receipts, photographing invoices, cross-referencing dates. Daniel hadn't just been having an affair. He'd been building a parallel family like it was a DIY project from Home Depot. Every receipt, every charge, every quiet trip listed in his calendar added a new wall to the house of lies he'd been constructing. My mother peeked in, a hand on her hip. "You knew and didn't tell me," I said, half angry, half incredulous. She rolled her eyes, a mixture of guilt and theatrical flair. "I suspected," she admitted, "but I didn't want to ruin your life until you were ready to see it." Ready or not, there was no putting this back in the envelope. Then my phone buzzed. Alex. He'd identified Kelly, Daniel's other half-life co-conspirator, and sent me a photo of the baby Macy, sleeping in a tiny nursery, blissfully unaware of the chaos her father had orchestrated. By the end of the afternoon, my living room had transformed into Exhibit A Central. Stacks of receipts, printed text threads, and spreadsheets sorted with precision only a librarian could sustain. This wasn't emotional outpouring. It was strategic. I exhaled, stepping back. The evidence was undeniable. I wasn't merely a wronged wife anymore. I was an architect of truth, assembling every fragment to design the reveal that would set the record straight. And Daniel had no idea it was coming. To my surprise, Kelly didn't gasp when I approached her outside Buffalo Community Hospital. Instead, she nodded slowly, calm and composed, as if she had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. She didn't need theatrics. The quiet strength in her eyes said everything. "He told her he was divorced," I said, voice low. The absurdity of his lies almost impressive. Kelly shook her head. "And he told me my child would come second to nothing. That was the truth, except for him." She showed me photos of Macy's nursery, stacks of baby clothes, hospital receipts, proof of the life Daniel had built on the side. Standing under a maple tree in the hospital courtyard, I felt a shift. My plan had been purely punitive. Gather evidence, expose, humiliate. But meeting Kelly, seeing her quietly enduring the same betrayal, I realized this wasn't just about revenge. It was about truth. Accountability. Protecting Macy too, in some small way. We compared notes, aligned timelines, and agreed on the stage, the anniversary party. Kelly would bring Macy. I would bring Exhibit A, receipts, and a slideshow of parallel lives. The timing had to be perfect, the reveal undeniable. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of clarity and moral purpose. This wasn't just exposing a liar. It was reclaiming agency, and in doing so, rewriting the story Daniel had tried to hide from both of us. Operation Anniversary is a go. I repeated it in my head like a mantra, pacing the kitchen while my mother made a dramatic show of pretending to faint at the sheer audacity of our plan. Alex was already on board, a steady hand in the chaos, and Taylor from accounting had agreed to quietly observe, and if necessary, lend moral support. I called everyone into the strategy session over text and a few whispered phone calls. My mother was in charge of theatrics, Alex handled documentation and tech, and Taylor was our eyes and ears in the office, ensuring Daniel wouldn't sense what was coming. Every detail had to align. Guest list, seating, projector setup, slideshow order, timing of Kelly and Macy's arrival. The cake topper was my piece de resistance. Grounds for divorce, a complete guide. I grinned just thinking about it. The slideshow would show Daniel's two lives side by side. Receipts, texts, photos, timelines, an undeniable visual narrative. Every coincidence he had counted on would be cataloged and displayed with precision. Everything was falling into place with the precision of a well-organized card catalog. I made a mental note to give Alex a substantial gift card this Christmas. My mother rehearsed her lines in the backyard, flinging her arms and wailing dramatically at the injustice of men like Daniel. I stood back, surveying the plan in my mind like an archivist arranging the final exhibits in a gallery. Each piece of evidence, every ally, every prop, perfectly positioned for the unveiling. It wasn't just about exposure anymore. It was about justice, clarity, and reclaiming control over a life that Daniel had tried to rewrite. I greeted Daniel with the same manufactured smile I use for patrons who return books with coffee stains. The backyard was transformed. Twinkling lights, carefully arranged chairs, a table set with hors d'oeuvres that looked innocent but were strategically placed for visibility. Guests arrived one by one. Co-workers, neighbors, friends. Daniel's parents, Angela and Julius, exchanged polite greetings, unaware that the stage was set. Daniel fidgeted, shifting from foot to foot. "Maybe we should," he began, but I cut him off with a soft, firm, "No, it's fine. Let's celebrate." He forced a smile, glancing at the driveway as if expecting some last-minute rescue from normalcy. Alex arrived, camera discreetly in hand, and Taylor slipped in quietly, settling into a chair near the front. I noticed the subtle tension in Daniel's jaw, the way he scanned the crowd, oblivious to the precision ticking like a clock around him. My mother, of course, could not resist a small flourish. "Darling, if he even tries to hint at impropriety, I will swoop in," she whispered theatrically. I ignored her, focusing instead on timing, order, and audience. Everything, the seating, the lights, the unsuspecting crowd, was part of the puzzle. Daniel remained blissfully unaware of the evidence waiting in the wings. Every subtle glance, every nervous chuckle from him was a confirmation. The trap was set, the pieces in place, the reveal imminent. The wheels were already in motion, rolling directly toward the cliff I'd built. I sipped my sparkling water, smiled at the neighbors, and silently reminded myself, patience, precision, timing. Soon, every secret Daniel had carefully hidden would be cataloged, displayed, and undeniable. The driveway lights flickered, and my heart gave a small, controlled lurch. Kelly pulled up, Macy bundled in her arms, perfectly calm despite the chaos that her very existence had caused. I stepped forward, gesturing to the guests. "This," I replied loudly enough for our nearest guests to hear, "is Macy, Daniel's daughter." The hush that followed was almost cinematic. Daniel's eyes widened, a deer in headlights, while the neighbors murmured, and my mother's hand flew to her chest in mock shock. I directed attention to the Exhibit A board. Receipts, credit card statements, hospital records, and photos of Macy's nursery. The projector flickered to life, displaying a split-screen slideshow on one side, our life, the house, family trips, routines. On the other, Daniel's carefully constructed parallel existence, Buffalo hospital visits, baby supplies, daycare signups. I call this presentation a tale of two Daniels, or should I say a tale of two deceivers, I said, voice steady, measured. And for those who prefer visuals, here's Exhibit A, Exhibit B, and Exhibit C. The guests leaned in. Phones emerged. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Daniel opened his mouth, then faltered. "Any questions?" I asked, the words a flourish, an invitation, a challenge. He tried to speak again, but Kelly's quiet authority held the room. Photos, receipts, texts, every lie exposed. The weight of truth pressed down, undeniable. Daniel's face fell, and he finally admitted it. The secret family, the lies, the parallel life. Every story he had told me, every fabrication to Kelly, all crumbled in the space of 30 minutes. Guests whispered, some gasped, others recorded. And there, in the center of my carefully orchestrated stage, Daniel realized that for once, he had no control. No spin. No escape. The full measure of his duplicity had been cataloged, displayed, and witnessed. I stepped back, hands steady, eyes locked on him. Justice had a calm, precise rhythm, and in that backyard, with Macy cooing softly, it was happening in real time. I approached Daniel, calm and deliberate, holding a sleek folder. "I've taken the liberty of drafting the divorce papers," I said, placing it on the cake table as guests murmured around us. His face tightened, the weight of the reveal still pressing down like a vice. "You can keep your secret family," I continued, voice steady, but the house and half of our savings stay with me. The room absorbed it in silence, then exhaled in small, approving whispers. Angela and Julius, his parents, exchanged glances before stepping toward me. Their subtle nod of support was a quiet victory I hadn't dared hope for. Daniel's signature trembled, ink scratching across the page. In real time, his social capital evaporated. Colleagues avoided his gaze, neighbors whispered behind their hands, and the truth of his duplicity was now an indelible part of the town record. Alex leaned over, giving me a small, victorious grin. Taylor clapped lightly, the kind of cautious applause that acknowledged both relief and vindication. My mother was theatrically waving her arms, thrilled beyond reason at the moral theater she'd always lived for. As Daniel packed up to leave, face drawn and defeated, I felt the weight lift. The separation was formalized, the assets secured, and the community's validation quietly consolidated. For the first time since the discovery, I could breathe, not in victory alone, but in the absolute clarity of justice executed with precision. 6 weeks later, life had settled into a rhythm both new and comfortable. Daniel was holed up in a tiny studio above a bar in Buffalo, nursing his reputation and finances like a wounded animal. Meanwhile, Kelly raised Macy with quiet authority, and the Robinsons, Angela and Julius, had become honorary grandparents, embracing their unexpected role with bemused pride. I found myself visiting often, bringing books for Macy, hosting monthly book club meetings at the library, and savoring the subtle, restorative power of routine. Taylor and I were moving slowly, cautiously exploring the possibility of something real, while Alex had been promoted, the kind of recognition he'd quietly earned. My mother, of course, continued her melodramatic retellings, embellishing details for theatrical effect, much to everyone's amusement. We librarians dedicate our days to organizing knowledge, spotting patterns, and preserving truth. Cross us and beware the consequences. These days, I hold on to receipts, not only as proof, but as a reminder. Clarity is strength, control is hard-won, and every story can be rewritten. Never underestimate the power of a well-kept receipt. Did you enjoy the story? If so, hit like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe. Thanks for watching Revenge with Keisha. See you next time.